Commander Thelvos stood on the bridge of the dominant flame, staring at displays that showed nothing but failure. Red warnings covered every screen. The ship's main systems were dead. Around him, his officers worked frantically at their stations, but their faces told the same story. They were trapped. The Xanthari Imperial fleet had been the pride of the Empire for 300 years. 12 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. 50,000 of the Empire's finest warriors, scientists, and crew members. They had been on a routine patrol through the Korvax Nebula, a journey they had made 1,000 times before. Nothing should have gone wrong, but everything had gone wrong. The quantum drives had failed all at once. One moment, the fleet was moving through subspace at incredible speed. The next moment, every ship had been thrown back into normal space like stones skipped across water. The drives were burned out completely. Worse, the sudden stop had damaged other systems throughout the ships. Life support was failing. Power was dropping. Communications were weak. Thelvos had commanded warships for 40 years. He had fought in 7 major battles. He had never known fear like this. In battle, you could fight back. Here, there was nothing to fight. Just the cold emptiness of space and the slow countdown to death. Status report, he said, keeping his voice steady. A commander could not show fear. His second officer, Krelnax, looked up from his station. His scaled face was pale. Life support at 60% across the fleet, dropping 2% every hour. Power reserves at 40%. The quantum drives are completely destroyed. We cannot repair them with what we have. Thelvos felt his chest tighten. How long? 30 hours until life support fails on most ships. Maybe 40 on the dominant flame. 30 hours. Less than 2 days. 50,000 lives. Send distress signals on all frequencies, Thelvos ordered. Full power. Let everyone know we are here. He did not say what they both knew. They were 17 light years from the nearest Xanthari outpost. Even if the signal reached home immediately, even if a rescue fleet left at once, they could not arrive in time. The Xanthari Empire did not have ships fast enough to save them. But Thelvos was a warrior. He would not give up while breath remained in his body. The hours crawled past like wounded animals. The distress signal went out screaming into the void. The fleet drifted in the darkness between stars. Engineers worked desperately to keep systems running. Medical teams prepared for the worst. Everyone knew what was coming. On the second day, they received responses to their distress signal. Thelvos felt a moment of hope before he read the messages. The first was from the Krelix Dominion, their oldest rivals. Xanthari fleet, your distress has been noted. The Dominion remembers the Treaty of Krell. You violated our territory 3 years ago. Let the void take you. This is justice. The second was from the Yithrin Collective. We received your signal. Unfortunately, we have no ships in your region. We wish you well. A polite way of saying they would not help. The third was from a Xanthari listening post, 17 light years away. Message received. Rescue fleet being organized. Estimated arrival time, 9 days. 9 days. They had less than 1 day left. Thelvos read the messages to his senior staff. No one spoke. What was there to say? We are Xanthari, Thelvos finally said. We will face the end with honor. Make sure all crew members understand. There will be no panic, no chaos. We go into the dark as warriors. His officers saluted and left to spread the word. Alone in his command chamber, Thelvos allowed himself a moment of weakness. He thought of his family on the homeworld. His mate, his 3 children. He had sent them a final message hours ago, but he did not know if it would reach them in time. The Xanthari had ruled their sector of space for 1,000 years. They had conquered 12 systems. They had defeated every enemy that challenged them. And now they would die in the dark, killed by a malfunction, forgotten by everyone except those who hated them. It seemed like a cruel joke. The life support continued to fail. The air grew thin and cold. Some crew members began to struggle with breathing. Medical stations filled with the weak and the sick. The ships became tombs waiting to be sealed. On the 3rd day, with only hours of breathable air remaining, Thelvos made his final log entry. This is Commander Thelvos of the Xanthari Imperial Fleet. We have done our duty to the last. We fought the darkness as long as we could. To whoever finds this recording, know that we were Xanthari. We were warriors. We did not surrender to death. It had to take us by force. He closed the log. Around him, the bridge was quiet. His crew sat at their stations, waiting. Some prayed to the old gods. Some simply stared at the stars. Thelvos looked at the main display, showing the empty space around them. A beautiful way to die, he supposed. Surrounded by stars, then one of those stars moved. Commander. The sensor officer's voice cracked with emotion. 3 ships approaching. Not Xanthari design. Unknown configuration. Thelvos stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Show me. The display changed. 3 vessels were moving toward the fleet. They were small compared to Xanthari warships. Strange shapes, unfamiliar technology. The sensor officer worked frantically at his controls. They are slowing down, coming to a stop near our position. They are hailing us. Put it through, Thelvos ordered. A voice came through the communication system. The translation software struggled with the language, but the words came through clearly enough. Xanthari Fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Exploration Convoy. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. What do you need? Thelvos stared at the display. Humans. He had never heard of them. They were not on any Xanthari charts, but they were here. They were here. This is Commander Thelvos. We need everything. Life support failing. No power for repairs. We are dying. There was a pause. Then the human voice came back, calm and steady. Understood. We are deploying repair teams now. Hold on. You are not dying today. On the display, smaller craft began launching from the human ships. Dozens of them, heading toward the Xanthari fleet. Thelvos felt something he had not felt in 3 days. Hope. His second officer looked at him with wide eyes. Commander, who are these humans? Why are they helping us? Thelvos shook his head. I do not know, Krelnax. I do not know. But as he watched the human ships approach, he made a decision. If they survived this, if these strange aliens saved them, he would spend the rest of his life finding out why. Because in a galaxy where rivals let you die and allies were too far away, someone had come when no one else would. The human ships drew closer, and for the first time in 3 days, Thelvos allowed himself to believe they might survive after all. Captain Sarah Chen had been drinking coffee when the distress signal came through. It was her 3rd cup of the morning, which meant it was going to be a long day even before the universe decided to complicate things. Captain, we are picking up something strange, her communications officer said. Lieutenant Park was young but good at his job. When he said something was strange, it usually was. Define strange, Sarah said, setting down her coffee. Distress signal. Very powerful. Not human origin. Language unknown, but the pattern is clear. Someone needs help. Sarah moved to the main display. The signal's origin point appeared on the star chart. It was close. Maybe 6 hours away at current speed. She pulled up the analysis. 12 large vessels. Very large. Much bigger than ours. No power signatures. They are dead in space. Sarah's convoy consisted of 3 ships. The Iron Mountain was a mining hauler, carrying equipment and supplies to a new colony site. The New Hope was a colony transport with 500 civilians on board. The Vigilant was a small military escort frigate. Sarah commanded the convoy from the Vigilant. She looked at the readings again. 12 massive ships. Unknown design. Unknown species. Dead in space. Her first officer, Commander Marcus Webb, stepped up beside her. Could be a trap. Could be, Sarah agreed. Could also be someone dying, Park added quietly. Sarah studied the display. Marcus was right to be cautious. First contact situations were dangerous. The unknown ships were clearly more advanced than human vessels. If it was a trap, her small convoy would not stand a chance, but the distress signal was real. She could feel it. Someone out there was dying. How many people do you think are on those ships? She asked. Park worked his console. Based on size and configuration, maybe 40 to 50,000. 50,000 lives. Sarah thought about the 500 civilians on the New Hope. Families, children, people trying to build a better life on a new world. She thought about how she would feel if they were stranded and no one came to help. Change course, she ordered. Take us to them. Marcus did not argue. He knew her well enough. Aye, Captain. All ships follow our lead. The convoy turned and headed toward the unknown fleet. As they approached, Sarah sent a message on all frequencies. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Exploration Convoy. We received your distress signal. Can you respond? For a long moment there was nothing. Then a voice came through. The translation software struggled but managed to convert the alien words. This is Commander Thelvos of the Xanthari Imperial Fleet. We need everything. Life support failing. No power for repairs. We are dying. The voice sounded tired, desperate. Sarah had heard that tone before. It was the sound of someone who had given up hope and then found it again. Understood, Sarah replied. We are deploying repair teams now, hold on. You are not dying today, she turned to Marcus. Get every engineer we have. Pull maintenance teams from all 3 ships. Bring all the spare parts and life support equipment we can carry. Medical teams on standby. Captain, Marcus said carefully, if we give them our supplies, we might not have enough for the colony. Then the colony will have to wait, Sarah said. We can call for more supplies. These people cannot wait. Marcus nodded and started giving orders. Within minutes, dozens of small craft were launching from the human ships. Each one carried engineers, medical staff, and equipment. Sarah watched them go, feeling the weight of her decision. She had just committed her entire convoy to helping strangers, aliens they knew nothing about. It might be the biggest mistake of her career, or it might be the most important thing she ever did. The small craft reached the alien fleet. Sarah listened to the radio chatter as her teams made contact. This is Team 1, making contact with the largest vessel. They are opening an airlock. Going in now. Team 3 here. We are reading critical life support failure on this ship. Multiple casualties. Medical team moving in. Team 7. Captain, you need to see this. These ships are incredible. The technology is way beyond ours. But everything is fried. It will take days to fix, Sarah grimaced. Days. They might not have days. Do what you can. Focus on life support first. Keep people alive. We can worry about engines later. Over the next hours, Sarah watched as her teams worked miracles. Human engineers crawled through alien ships, figuring out systems they had never seen before. They connected human life support units to Xanthari ships. They shared oxygen tanks. They gave food and water to the dying aliens. And slowly, the Xanthari fleet came back to life. Sarah decided it was time to meet their commander face to face. She took a shuttle to the largest Xanthari ship, the Dominant Flame. The Xanthari were impressive. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with scaled skin that shifted between blue and green. Their faces were angular with large eyes and sharp teeth. They looked like predators, warriors. Commander Thelvos met her in the airlock. He towered over her, but his expression was not hostile. He looked confused. Captain Chen, he said. The translator made his voice sound mechanical, but she could hear the emotion beneath it. You came. You actually came. Your people needed help, Sarah said simply. Of course we came. Thelvos stared at her. We are strangers. You owe us nothing. We are not part of your empire. We cannot pay you. Why did you risk your ships and your people to help us? Sarah blinked. It seemed like an odd question. Because you needed help. That is enough. That is not how the galaxy works, Thelvos said. No one helps for free. What do you want? Territory? Technology? Resources? We want you to not die, Sarah said. That is all. Thelvos looked like she had hit him with something heavy. He turned to one of his officers and spoke in his own language. The officer looked equally shocked. They both stared at Sarah like she was an alien, which Sarah supposed she was. I do not understand your people, Thelvos finally said. That is okay, Sarah replied with a small smile. We can learn about each other. But first, let us make sure everyone survives. My engineers say your ships need major repairs. We do not have all the parts you need, but we can stabilize life support and power. Then we can figure out how to get you home. Home is 9 days away, Thelvos said quietly. Our rescue fleet cannot arrive in time. Then we will keep you alive for 9 days, Sarah said. Or longer if needed. Whatever it takes. Thelvos was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. The Krelix Dominion said we should die. The Ithran Collective said they could not help. Our own people are too far away. You are the only ones who came. Then I guess it is a good thing we were nearby, Sarah said. Over the following days, humans and Xanthari worked together. It was not easy. The two species were very different. The Xanthari were formal and hierarchical. They had trouble understanding human humor and casual attitudes. When a human engineer made a joke while fixing a critical system, the Xanthari thought he was not taking it seriously. When humans shared their limited food supplies equally with the Xanthari, the aliens did not understand why they were not demanding tribute. But slowly, understanding grew. The Xanthari watched humans work impossible hours without complaint. They saw human medical teams treat Xanthari wounded with the same care they gave their own people. They heard humans laugh while solving problems that would make Xanthari engineers despair. Sarah spent time with Thelvos, explaining human culture. She told him about Earth, about how humans had a long tradition of helping strangers, about maritime rescue laws that said you always saved people in danger no matter who they were. It is just what you do, she explained one evening in his command chamber. But why? Thelvos asked. He genuinely did not understand. Sarah thought about it. Because someday we might be the ones who need help, and we hope someone would do the same for us. But more than that, because it is right. Because we are all living beings trying to survive in a big, cold universe. We should help each other. Thelvos looked at her with his large alien eyes. Your species is very strange, Captain Chen, Sarah laughed. You are not the first person to say that. But as she left his chamber, she saw something in his expression. Respect, wonder, and maybe, just maybe, hope for something better than the galaxy he had known. Engineer Maria Santos had never expected to become friends with an alien warrior. But life had a way of surprising people. She was working in the engine room of one of the Xanthari cruisers, trying to figure out their power distribution system. It was incredibly complex, far beyond anything humans had built. But it was also broken, and broken things needed fixing. That was something Maria understood. A young Xanthari warrior named Korvash watched her work. He was assigned to assist her, though he clearly did not know much about engineering. He was a soldier, trained for combat, not repairs, but he followed her around and handed her tools when she asked. Why do you hum? He asked after an hour of silence. Maria looked up from the power conduit she was examining. What? You hum. A sound. Not words. Why? Maria had not even realized she was doing it. Oh, I don't know. It helps me think, I guess. Makes the work feel less lonely. Korvash tilted his head, a gesture that looked very alien on his scaled face. Work should be serious, silent, you treat it like play. Work can be serious and fun at the same time, Maria said, returning to the conduit. If you can't enjoy what you do, what's the point? The point is duty, Korvash said. Honor, service to the Empire. Maria shrugged. Sure, but you can serve and still smile, right? Korvash did not answer. He just watched her work with an expression she could not read. Similar conversations were happening all over the fleet. Humans and Xanthari were learning about each other, and both sides were confused. In the medical bay of the New Hope, Dr. James Park treated Xanthari patients with severe respiratory problems. The Xanthari had been breathing thin air for days and their lungs were damaged. James worked quickly, administering oxygen and medication. A Xanthari medical officer named Shalnira watched him carefully. She was tall, even for a Xanthari, with dark green scales and sharp, intelligent eyes. You give them the same treatment you would give humans, she observed. Of course, James said, adjusting an IV line. They're patients. They need help. But they are not your people. You have limited medical supplies. Should you not save them for your own? James looked at her in surprise. I'm a doctor. I help anyone who needs it. That's the job. That is not logical, Shalnira said. Your own people should come first. Maybe, James admitted. But what kind of person would I be if I let someone die when I could save them? I couldn't live with myself. Shalnira was quiet for a long time. Humans are very strange, she finally said. James smiled. Yeah, we get that a lot this week. On the dominant flame, Commander Thelvos met with his senior staff. They were discussing the humans, trying to understand them. It was not going well. They have given us 30% of their food supplies, his logistics officer reported. They are now on reduced rations themselves. For us. For strangers. They have diverted their entire convoy, his navigation officer added. The colony they were supplying will be delayed by weeks. They will lose money, time, resources for us. They work all hours without complaint, the chief engineer said. Our warriors rest in shifts. The humans just keep working. One of their engineers collapsed from exhaustion yesterday. When we told him to rest, he said he would rest when everyone was safe. Thelvos listened to all of this with growing disbelief. Every report made the humans seem more impossible, more irrational. They have superior technology in some areas, his intelligence officer said. Their medical equipment is more advanced than ours. Their material science is impressive, but they treat us as equals. They ask our engineers for advice. They share their knowledge freely. Why? Thelvos demanded. Why would they do any of this? No one had an answer. A junior officer, a historian named Velmoth, spoke up hesitantly. Commander, I have been reviewing the human data files. They gave us access to their cultural database. I found something interesting. Show me, Thelvos ordered. Velmoth displayed information on the main screen. Humans have laws about helping others in danger. Very old laws, thousands of years old. On their world, on their oceans, there is something called maritime law. It says if you see someone in danger on the water, you must help them, even if they are your enemy. Even if it risks your own safety. It is considered a fundamental duty. The staff stared at the display. They made it a law? Someone asked. It goes deeper, Velmoth continued. Their religions, their philosophies, their stories. So many of them focus on helping strangers. They have a concept called the Good Samaritan from an ancient story. A man helps a stranger from a rival group who was injured. This story is told to their children as an example of virtue. Velmoth brought up more files. They have organizations dedicated to helping strangers, groups that go to disaster zones to provide aid, people who donate their time and resources to help others they will never meet. They call it charity. Humanitarian work. They consider it noble. Thelvos felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. This is their culture. Helping strangers. It is part of their culture, Velmoth said. They also fight wars. They have conflicts. They are not perfect. But yes, helping others seems deeply embedded in their way of thinking. The room was silent. The Xanthari had conquered their way across 12 systems. They had built an empire on strength and dominance. The idea of helping rivals, of wasting resources on strangers, was alien to them. But here were the humans doing exactly that. Days passed. The work continued. And slowly something began to change. Maria taught Korvash how to repair power systems. She showed him tricks and shortcuts, sharing knowledge that would have been secret in Xanthari culture. Korvash began to understand that work could be satisfying in itself, not just a duty. One day, as they finished connecting a new power relay, Maria cheered and high-fived him. Korvash did not know what a high five was, but he learned quickly. And for the first time in his life, he found himself smiling while working. Dr. Park and Shalnira worked together to treat patients. Shalnira watched James treat every patient the same way, whether human or Xanthari. She began to understand that his kindness was not weakness. It was a different kind of strength. When a human patient needed a rare blood type and they were running low, Shalnira suggested using Xanthari medical technology to synthesize it. She did not have to help. The patient was not her responsibility, but she did it anyway. James thanked her, and she found she liked the feeling it gave her. Throughout the fleet, these small moments multiplied. A Xanthari soldier shared his emergency rations with a hungry human engineer. A human mechanic taught a Xanthari technician a better way to calibrate sensors. A group of humans and Xanthari ate together, sharing stories about their homes. Captain Chen visited the ships regularly, checking on progress. She noticed the changes. Humans and Xanthari were no longer just working together. They were becoming friends. One evening, she found Thelvos standing in an observation room looking at the stars. "Penny for your thoughts," she said. Thelvos looked at her. The translator struggled with the idiom. "I do not understand. It means, what are you thinking about?" "My people," Thelvos said slowly. "My empire. We have existed for 1,000 years. We conquered 12 systems. We defeated every enemy. We thought we understood the galaxy. Strength matters. Power matters. The weak are consumed. The strong survive." He gestured at the human ships visible through the window. "Then you arrived. Small ships, weak weapons, inferior numbers. And you saved us. Not because you wanted something. Not because we had anything to offer. Just because we needed help." Sarah stood beside him. And I wonder if we were wrong. About everything. About what matters. About what makes a civilization great." He looked at her. "Your people are not weak, Captain Chen. You are strong in ways we never considered." Sarah smiled. "We're just doing what seems right." "You would do the same." "I am not sure we would," Thelvos admitted. "But perhaps we should learn how." He turned to face her fully. "When we return to our empire, I will tell them about humanity. I will tell them what you did for us. I do not know if they will believe me, but I will try to make them understand. Understand what? Sarah asked. That there is a different way to live, a better way perhaps. That helping others is not weakness. That kindness is not foolishness, he paused. Your people may have saved more than our lives, Captain Chen. You may have saved something more important. Our future. Sarah felt the weight of his words. She had come here just to help people in trouble. She had not thought about changing civilizations or challenging philosophies. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the most important changes started with simple acts of kindness. We're glad we could help, she said quietly. Outside the window, human and Xanthari ships floated together in the darkness surrounded by stars, two species learning from each other. And in that moment, the galaxy felt a little bit smaller and a little bit brighter. The warning came at the worst possible time. Lieutenant Park was finishing his shift on the Vigilant when his sensors lit up with new contacts. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, large ships, military configurations, and they were coming fast. Captain Chen to the bridge now. Sarah arrived in under a minute. She had learned to recognize that tone in Park's voice. It was the tone that meant trouble. Show me, she ordered. The display updated. 8 ships, each one comparable in size to the Xanthari cruisers. But these were different. Darker. More aggressive in design. They were heading straight for the stranded fleet. Are they Xanthari? Sarah asked. No, ma'am. Different configuration. Different energy signatures. I'm sending the data to the dominant flame for identification. The response came quickly. Thelvos appeared on the communication screen and his face was tight with anger and fear. Captain Chen, those are Krellick's Dominion warships. They are our enemies. They knew we were stranded. They ignored our distress calls. Now they come to finish us. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Can your ships fight? No. We have partial life support and basic power. Our weapons are offline. Our shields are down. We are defenseless. Thelvos paused. Captain, you should leave. Take your ships and go. This is not your fight. You have done more than enough for us. Sarah looked at the display. 8 Krellick's warships. 3 human ships. The Vigilant was a small escort frigate designed for patrol duty, not major combat. The Iron Mountain was an unarmed mining hauler. The New Hope was a transport with 500 civilians on board. This was not a fight they could win. They could not even pretend to fight. It would be suicide. Marcus Webb stood beside her, his expression grim. Captain, he's right. We should withdraw. We can't help them against that kind of firepower. Sarah knew he was right. The logical choice was to leave. Save her own people. She had already done more than anyone could expect. No one would blame her for retreating. She thought about the civilians on the New Hope family's children, her responsibility. She thought about the Xanthari who would die if the Krelliks attacked. She thought about what it meant to be human. No, she said quietly. Captain? Marcus looked at her in alarm. We're not leaving. Sarah turned to her crew. Battle stations. All ships to defensive formation. Put us between the Xanthari fleet and those Krellik ships. Captain, that's insane, Marcus said. We can't stop them. They'll destroy us, maybe, Sarah agreed. But they'll have to go through us first. She opened a channel to all 3 human ships. This is Captain Chen. The Krelliks are coming to attack the Xanthari. We're going to stop them. I know this isn't what we signed up for. I know some of you have families waiting at home. If anyone wants to break formation and leave, I'll understand. No judgment. No consequences, she waited. The channel was silent. Then one by one her ships responded. Iron Mountain standing by, Captain. Where you go, we go. New Hope holding position, Captain. Those Xanthari are our friends now. We don't abandon friends. Sarah felt a surge of emotion. Pride. Fear. Love for these impossible, brave, foolish humans. All right then, she said. Let's do this. Someone open a channel to those Krellik ships. The channel opened. Sarah took a breath and spoke clearly. Krellik's Dominion vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Exploration Convoy. The Xanthari fleet is under our protection. Turn back now, there was a pause. Then laughter came through the speakers. Cold, harsh laughter, humans. We do not know humans. We do not care about humans. Move aside or be destroyed with the Xanthari. The Krellik ships continued their approach. Sarah could see their weapons powering up. This is your final warning, she said. These people are under our protection. If you attack them, you attack us, more laughter. Then you will die with them. Sarah closed the channel. She looked at her crew. Well, I guess we do this the hard way. The human ships moved into position, forming a wall between the Zenthari fleet and the approaching Krelliks. It was a gesture more than a defense. The Vigilance weapons would barely scratch those Krelliks cruisers. But they were there, standing in the way. On the dominant flame, Thelvos watched in disbelief. They are insane. Why would they do this? His officers had no answer. None of them had ever seen anything like it. 3 small ships against 8 warships. It was not strategy. It was not tactics. It was suicide. But the humans stayed in position. Thelvos made a decision. Power up everything we have. Weapons, shields, engines. I don't care if it burns out every system. We stand with the humans. Commander, we barely have enough power to maintain life support, his chief engineer protested. Then we die fighting instead of waiting. Thelvos snapped. The humans are willing to die for us. We will not let them die alone. All ships battle formation. Protect the human vessels. Throughout the Zenthari fleet, alarms blared. Systems that had been carefully conserved for life support were redirected to weapons and shields. It would not be enough. They were still too damaged. But they would try. The Zenthari ships moved forward, forming up around the human vessels. 12 massive warships running on emergency power, standing with 3 tiny human ships. The Krelliks fleet slowed. Sarah could imagine their confusion. This did not make sense. Why would the humans do this? Why would the Zenthari waste their remaining power on a fight they could not win? A new channel opened. A different voice, deeper and more controlled. I am War Leader Krexthor of the Krelliks Dominion. Human Captain, you are making a mistake. We have no quarrel with you. Leave now and you may go in peace. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. And if we don't, then you will be destroyed. You cannot win this fight. Why throw away your lives for the Zenthari? They are not your people. They are not your allies. They are nothing to you. They're people who need help, Sarah said simply. That's enough. That is foolishness, Krexthor said. That is weakness. No, Sarah replied. That's humanity. She gestured to Park. Send them everything. Our history files. Our culture database. Everything about Earth and human civilization. I want them to know who we are. Park looked confused but did as ordered. Data streamed from the Vigilant to the Krelliks fleet. Sarah continued speaking. War Leader Krexthor, we are humans. We come from a small planet called Earth. We are not the strongest species. We are not the most advanced. But we have one rule that we follow above all others. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We help those who need help, even if it costs us everything, she paused. The Zenthari are under our protection. If you want to attack them, you will have to go through us. And I promise you, we will make you pay for every life you take. You will win, but we will make you remember this day. We will make you remember what it costs to attack people under human protection. There was a long silence. Sarah could imagine the Krelliks leadership discussing their options. They could destroy the human ships easily. But it would not be free. The humans would fight. And the Zenthari, desperate and damaged as they were, would fight too. It would be bloody, and for what? To destroy an already broken fleet? The Krelliks ships slowed further. They were holding position now, not advancing. You are insane, Krexthor finally said. All of you. The humans for protecting enemies. The Zenthari for accepting help from weaklings. Maybe, Sarah said. But we're insane together. Another long pause. Sarah held her breath. This could go either way. The Krelliks might decide to attack anyway. They might be too proud to back down, or they might realize that this fight was not worth it. Finally, Krexthor spoke again. We withdraw for now. But know this, human captain. We will remember you. We will remember this day. When we meet again, things may be different. When we meet again, Sarah said, maybe we can talk instead of fight. The Krelliks ships turned and began to move away, slowly at first, then faster. Within minutes they were gone, disappearing into faster-than-light travel. The human and Zenthari ships stayed in formation, weapons still powered up just in case. But the Krelliks did not come back. Finally, Sarah let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Around her, the bridge crew was silent, processing what had just happened. Then someone started laughing. It was Park, and his laugh was slightly hysterical. We just bluffed a war fleet with 3 cargo ships. The laughter spread. Relief and disbelief and joy all mixed together. They had survived. They had won somehow. A communication came in from Thelvos. His voice was thick with emotion. Captain Chen, you stayed. You stood with us against an enemy that could have destroyed you. Why? Why would you do that? Sarah smiled, though her hands were shaking from adrenaline. Because that's what friends do, Commander. And somewhere over the last few days you became our friends. Thelvos was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. I have served in the Zenthari military for 40 years. I have seen many battles, many allies, many enemies. But I have never seen anything like what you did today. You risked everything for people you barely know. You're welcome, Sarah said simply. No, Thelvos said. Thank you is not enough. There are no words in my language for what you have done. You saved our lives twice, once from death in the void, once from death in battle. And you asked for nothing in return? He paused. Captain Chen, I swear to you, the Zenthari will never forget this. We will never forget humanity. What you have taught us. What you have shown us. It will change us. It will change everything. 3 months had passed since the rescue. 3 months since humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage in a way no one expected. Admiral Creshfall stood before the Zenthari High Council, a gathering of the Empire's most powerful leaders. They sat in a vast chamber carved from black stone, their scales gleaming in the dim light. These were the rulers of 12 systems, commanders of 1,000 worlds. They did not impress easily, but today Creshfall watched them listen with complete attention as Commander Thelvos gave his report. The humans stayed, Thelvos said, his voice echoing in the chamber. When the Krelliks came to destroy us, when we were helpless, when logic said they should flee, they stayed. 3 ships against 8 warships. They put themselves between us and certain death. They were willing to die for people they had known for less than a week. The council members looked at each other. High Counselor Vrenthak spoke, his voice heavy with skepticism. You are certain this is accurate? They received nothing in return? No territory? No technology? No promises of alliance? Nothing, Thelvos confirmed. I offered them access to our technology. I offered them trade rights. I offered them diplomatic ties. They refused everything. They said they helped because it was the right thing to do. Impossible, another counselor said. No species acts this way. There must be some hidden motive. Thelvos had expected this. He had spent 3 months preparing for this meeting. I brought evidence. Data files, recordings, testimony from 50,000 Zenthari who witnessed human actions, and I brought something else. He activated a display showing the human cultural database. This is humanity's history. Their values. Their philosophy. They have been helping strangers for thousands of years. It is not a trick. It is not a scheme. It is simply who they are. The council watched the display showing humans rescuing people from disasters, sharing resources with starving populations, risking their lives to save strangers. Again and again the same pattern. Help those who need it regardless of reward. This changes everything, Admiral Creshfall said quietly. If this is true, if there exists a species that acts from pure altruism, then our entire understanding of galactic politics is wrong. High Counselor Vrenthak leaned forward. What do you propose, Commander Thelvos? Thelvos took a breath. This was the moment he had been preparing for. I propose we learn from them. For 1,000 years we have believed that power and conquest make an empire great, but the humans showed me a different kind of strength. The strength to help without expecting reward. The strength to sacrifice for strangers. Perhaps that is true greatness. You suggest we change the foundation of our empire? Vrenthak asked dangerously. I suggest we expand it, Thelvos replied. We have built an empire on military might. It has served us well. But what if we also built an empire on trust, on cooperation, on the kind of actions the humans showed us? We would be stronger, not weaker. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some agreed. Some called Thelvos a fool. Some demanded more proof. But they were talking about it, debating it, considering it. That alone was a victory. Admiral Creshfall raised a hand for silence. Commander Thelvos, you will establish formal contact with humanity. Learn more about them. If they are what you say they are, then we must understand them. Because if they can make us question 1,000 years of tradition in 3 days, they are the most dangerous and important discovery in our history. Far from the Zenthari homeworld, in the capital of the Krelliks Dominion, war leader Krexthor gave his own report. They bluffed us, he told his superiors. 3 cargo ships against our war fleet. They had no chance, but they made us believe they would fight anyway. They made us believe they would make it costly. Why did we retreat? His commanding officer demanded. Because they were insane, Krexthor said. Because they meant it. I saw the data from their ships. They were ready to die, all of them. For strangers. I have never seen anything like it. And I realized that fighting an enemy who has no fear of death is always expensive. The question is, was destroying an already damaged Zenthari fleet worth starting a war with this new species? He paused. I decided it was not. We withdrew to gather intelligence, to learn more about these humans. And what have you learned? His commander asked. Krexthor displayed the human cultural database that Sarah had sent them. That they are exactly what they appeared to be. Irrational. Self-sacrificing. Dangerously altruistic. And that makes them unpredictable. You cannot threaten someone who is willing to die for their principles. You cannot intimidate someone who values others' lives more than their own comfort. Weakness, someone in the room muttered. Is it? Krexthor challenged. They stood alone against us. They did not have to. They gained nothing from it. Yet they did it anyway. And we blinked first, who was weak in that moment. The room fell silent. I recommend we do not engage humanity unless absolutely necessary, Krexthor continued. Not because they are militarily superior, but because they fight by rules we do not understand. And in my experience, that is the most dangerous enemy of all. The story spread, from the Zenthari to the Krelix, from the Krelix to the Yithrin Collective, from the Yithrin to a dozen other species. Each time the story was told, it grew slightly. But the core remained the same. Humans had saved strangers at great risk to themselves. Humans had faced down a superior enemy to protect people they barely knew. Humans had done these things not for reward, but because they believed it was right. Some species dismissed the story as propaganda. Some thought it was exaggerated, but many listened and wondered. On a trading station near the galactic core, a merchant from the Vorlax Consortium heard the story from a Zenthari trader. The Vorlax were known as the most ruthless business people in the galaxy. They believed in profit above all else. But the merchant, whose name was Trell Ixon, found himself thinking about the story. About humans who gave without taking, who helped without charging. It was inefficient. It was irrational. It was also beautiful in a strange way. Trellixon made a decision. The next time he saw someone in trouble at the station, he helped them. Not for profit. Not for favor. Just to help. It felt strange. It felt uncomfortable. It also felt good. Small acts multiplied across a galaxy. A Yithrin diplomat decided to support a humanitarian mission she would have previously ignored. A Krelix captain chose to answer a distress call instead of ignoring it. A dozen species and a dozen systems made small choices to be a little bit kinder, a little bit more helpful. Not everyone, of course. The galaxy was still full of conflict, greed, and violence. But something had changed. A seed had been planted. On Earth, in a small office at the United Nations Space Exploration Council, Sarah Chen sat across from Director Williams. She had been back home for 2 weeks and she was still processing everything that had happened. You caused quite a stir, Williams said, not unkindly, threatening an alien war fleet, redistributing supplies without authorization, diverting an entire convoy on your own authority. I know, Sarah said. I violated about 30 protocols. I'm ready to accept whatever consequences. Williams smiled. Consequences? Captain Chen, you just made humanity the most talked about species in that entire sector of space. We've received contact requests from 17 different civilizations. The Zenthari want to establish formal diplomatic relations. Even the Krelix have expressed interest in dialogue. He leaned forward. You didn't just save 50,000 Zenthari lives. You introduced humanity to the galaxy in a way that no planned first contact could have achieved. You showed them who we are at our best. I just helped people who needed it, Sarah said. Exactly, Williams replied, and that's why it worked. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't trying to make a statement. You just did what humans do. And apparently that's revolutionary in galactic politics. He handed her a folder. This is your new assignment. First contact ambassador to the Zenthari Empire. If you want it. Sarah looked at the folder in surprise. You want me to be a diplomat? I want you to keep being exactly what you are, Williams said. Someone who does the right thing, even when it's hard. Apparently that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Sarah opened the folder and looked at the orders. She thought about Thelvos and his crew, about Maria and Korvash, about Dr. Park and Shalnira, about all the connections that had been made during those desperate days. "I'll do it," she said. 6 months after the rescue, the Zenthari High Council announced a new initiative. They called it the Humanity Doctrine. It established that the Zenthari would respond to distress calls, even from non-allies, that they would render aid to those in need when possible. That strength was not just about military power, but about the character to help others. Not everyone in the Empire agreed. There was resistance, debate, and argument. But slowly the idea took hold, because 50,000 Zenthari had seen humanity's actions firsthand. And they told their families, their friends, their communities. They told the story of the humans who came when no one else would, who stayed when logic said to leave, who risked everything for strangers, and the story changed them. In a small bar on a human colony world, Maria Santos sat with her engineering crew, celebrating the end of their latest. The journey to the communication center took them through the heart of Nexus Prime. Taeho stayed close behind Dongwu as they moved through corridors that seemed designed for giants. Emergency lights painted everything in harsh red shadows. Every few minutes they encountered more guards. Each time Dongwu would motion for Taeho to wait while he moved ahead alone. The diplomat learned not to watch too closely. The sounds were bad enough. Brief struggles, the hum of energy weapons firing at empty air, then silence. "How many more?" Taeho asked after the 5th group of unconscious guards. "We're halfway there," Dongwu replied. His breathing was still normal, as if he had been taking a casual walk instead of fighting through an army. "The heaviest resistance will be at the communication center itself." As they climbed through maintenance shafts to avoid the main corridors, Taeho heard announcements echoing through the station. The council was calling in every ship in the sector. Fleets that had been scattered across the galaxy were being ordered to converge on Nexus Prime. "They're preparing for total war," he said. "Yes, they believe I am the advanced scout for an invasion force, aren't you?" Dongwu paused in his climbing. "No. I am here to protect one diplomat and prevent a war. But if they force my hand, I will become what they fear most." They reached the communication center's level and found it sealed behind blast doors thick enough to stop starship weapons. Warning signs in 12 languages declared it a restricted military zone. Guard positions had been reinforced with automated defense systems. 57 personnel behind those doors, Dongwu said, pressing his hand against the metal. His implants were scanning through the walls. Heavy weapons, energy barriers, and at least 3 war mechs. War mechs? 12-foot-tall fighting machines, usually used for planetary assault. Taeho swallowed hard. "Can you get through them?" "Yes, but not without casualties on their side." For a moment they stood in silence outside the sealed doors. Inside, Taeho could hear the sounds of soldiers preparing for battle. They knew death was coming for them, but they were ready to face it. "There has to be another way," Taeho said. "There is." Dongwu touched a hidden panel on the wall. "I have been connected to the station's computer network since we arrived. I can access the communication system from here." "Then why did we fight through all those guards?" "Because the council needed to see what I'm capable of. Fear is a language they understand better than diplomacy." Dongwu's eyes went blank for a moment as his implants interfaced with the station's systems. When he looked normal again, he nodded toward a small screen that had appeared in the wall. "You have access to every communication channel in council space. Choose carefully. This may be humanity's last chance to speak for itself." Taeho approached the screen and began typing. His message would go out to every council member, every ship captain, every species in the galactic community. This was bigger than just the 12 species on the council. This was about the future of an entire galaxy. "Council members and citizens of all species," he began. "My name is Kim Taeho, diplomatic representative of Earth. I speak to you from Nexus Prime, where humanity came seeking peace and found only violence." In the council chamber, the 12 rulers watched his transmission with growing unease. They had expected him to call for help, to beg for mercy, or to threaten revenge. Instead, his voice was calm and measured. "You have seen what one human can do when protecting his people. Lee Dongwu is not a soldier or a warrior. He is what my species becomes when we have no other choice. But he is here to prevent war, not start one." On every ship in the sector, alien crews stopped their preparations to listen. Something in the human's voice demanded attention. Your council invited us here under the promise of fair negotiations. Instead, they offered us slavery or death. When we refused both, they murdered our cultural attaché, Park So-min. She came here believing that different species could learn to understand each other. Taeho's voice grew stronger. She was wrong about your council, but she was right about the possibility of peace. Even now, even after everything that has happened, I offer you that chance. High Counselor Vexithara's mandibles clicked angrily. Lies, the human is trying to— Silence, commanded High Counselor Zefkol. Let him finish. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy, Taeho continued. We do not want to conquer or destroy. We want to join a community of civilized species working together for the good of all. But we will not accept slavery. We will not bow to bullies, and we will not allow the murder of our people to go unanswered. He paused, looking directly into the camera. You have seen one human today. Earth has millions more like him. But we also have artists, scientists, teachers, and dreamers. We have parents who love their children and children who wonder about the stars. We are not the monsters your council claims we are. Throughout the sector, alien ships began to slow their approach to Nexus Prime. Crews talked among themselves in languages Taeho could not hear, but the tone was changing. The choice is yours, he said. You can listen to a council that rules through fear and violence, or you can choose to build something better. Humanity is willing to work with any species that approaches us with respect and honesty, but we will defend ourselves against any who seek to harm us. He reached over and touched a control that Dongwu had indicated. New images appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. They showed Earth, not as a military target but as a living world. Cities where billions of humans went about their daily lives. Schools where children learned about the universe. Hospitals where doctors saved lives. Parks where families played together. This is what you would destroy, Taeho said quietly. These are the people you would enslave. Look at them and ask yourself if this is the legacy you want for galactic civilization. In the council chamber, several members were no longer watching the screens. High Counselor Luresh, whose crystal body had been flashing angry red, now glowed with uncertain yellow patterns. You have a choice to make, Taeho concluded. You can choose war with a species that wants only to live in peace. Or you can choose to build a galaxy where all sentient beings are treated with dignity and respect. The decision is yours. The transmission ended. Across the sector, thousands of ships hung motionless in space as their crews considered what they had heard. On Nexus Prime, alarms suddenly stopped wailing. The red emergency lights shifted to normal white illumination. Through the communication center's blast doors, Taeho could hear confused voices as soldiers received new orders. The council is calling for a ceasefire, Dongwu reported, his implants monitoring all communications. Fleet commanders are requesting clarification of orders. What does that mean? It means they are afraid of what will happen if this continues. The blast doors in front of them slowly began to open. Taeho tensed, expecting weapons and angry soldiers. Instead, a small group of guards emerged with their weapons lowered. Their leader, a Vorthak whose crystal body showed nervous blue patterns, spoke carefully. Human diplomatic representative Kim Taeho, the council, requests your immediate presence in the chamber. They wish to discuss new terms. And Lee Dongwu? The guard's crystal form flickered with what might have been fear. He is also invited. The council believes there are things to clarify about humanity's capabilities. As they walked back through the corridors of Nexus Prime, Taeho noticed that the unconscious guards were being helped to medical stations. None of them had been killed, despite being part of a system that had tried to murder him and his friends. You could have killed them all, he said to Dongwu. Yes, but So-min would not have wanted that. She was right about one thing, Taeho said as they approached the council chamber. Different species can learn to understand each other. Sometimes they just need the right motivation. Fear is a powerful teacher. So is mercy. The chamber doors opened before them. Inside, 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries waited to negotiate with the primitive humans they had tried to destroy. The balance of power in the universe had just shifted, and everyone in the room knew it. The real negotiations were about to begin. Station alarms screamed through every corridor of Nexus Prime. Red emergency lights bathed the walls in blood-colored shadows. In the command center, officers from a dozen different species tried to understand what was happening to their perfect fortress. Security Team 7, report, commanded the station's Vorthak security chief Kexmore, His crystal body flashed urgent orange patterns. Silence answered him. Security Team 12, what is your status? More silence. On the main display screen, a map of the station showed security teams as green dots. One by one, those dots were going dark. Something was moving through Nexus Prime like a plague, and it was heading toward the command center. What is that thing? Whispered a Clixon officer, her mandibles clicking with fear. In the council chamber, the 12 rulers of galactic civilization watched their security footage with growing horror. The cameras caught only glimpses of Lee Dongwu as he moved through their station. He appeared in a corridor for a split second, then vanished like smoke. Guards would turn a corner and simply collapse. Weapons would fire at empty space while their owners fell unconscious behind them. This is impossible, High Counselor Murdoch insisted, his forearms gesturing wildly at the screens. No single being can move that fast. He's not moving fast, observed High Counselor Zenkala, a being that looked like a walking tree. Her voice rustled like leaves in wind. Watch the timestamps. He's appearing in multiple locations at the same time. The other council members leaned forward to look more closely. Zenkala was right. The security footage showed Dongwu in Section 4 at exactly the same moment he appeared in Section 9. That was impossible unless... There are more of them, breathed Vexithara. He's not alone, but they were wrong. There was only one Lee Dongwu, one member of humanity's Ghost Protocol. What they were seeing was the result of technology and training that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Neural implants that sped up his thoughts until seconds felt like minutes. Biotechnology that enhanced his muscles and reflexes beyond natural limits. Psychological conditioning that removed fear, doubt, and hesitation from his mind. Most importantly, he had spent 3 days mapping every inch of Nexus Prime. While the council thought he was standing quietly behind Tejo, his enhanced senses had been recording the location of every security camera, every weapon system, every ventilation shaft and maintenance tunnel. His implants had hacked into the station's computer network and downloaded complete blueprints. The aliens had given him everything he needed to destroy them. In the corridor where So-Min's body lay, Tejo sat in shocked silence. The battle was over, but he could hear the sounds of fighting echoing through the station's halls. Explosions, weapons fire, screams in languages he didn't recognize. What have they done? He whispered to himself. A soft sound made him look up. Dongwu stood in the doorway, perfectly clean and calm. It was as if the last hour of violence had never happened. The immediate threat has been neutralized, Dongwu reported, but reinforcements are arriving from the docked ships. This situation will escalate quickly. Escalate? Tejo stared at him in disbelief. You just fought through an entire security force like it was nothing. What could be worse than this? War, Dongwu said simply. If I continue fighting, if I destroy this station and everyone on it, Earth will face the combined fleets of 12 species. Billions will die. Through the station's communication system, a voice boomed in the trade language that most species understood. It was High Counselor Zephkal, and his gaseous form was swirling with agitation. Attention, all personnel. The humans have revealed their true nature. They are not diplomats but assassins. All council fleets are ordered to Earth immediately. Humanity will be sterilized before they can spread their violence further. Tejo felt his blood turn to ice. They're going to attack Earth. Not if I stop them here, Dongwu said. But for the first time since the fighting began, he looked uncertain. However, if I do that, I will have to kill everyone on this station, including the council members. That would make humanity look exactly like the monsters they claim we are. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. More guards were coming, but these moved differently. Their steps were coordinated, professional. These were not security guards, but actual soldiers. Elite forces from the council fleets, Dongwu observed. They will be better equipped and trained. More dangerous. Can you handle them? Dongwu was quiet for a moment. Yes, but each escalation makes peace less likely. The first of the new guards appeared at the end of the corridor. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. Human-designated Lee Dongwu. You are surrounded by Council elite guard units. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Counter-offer, Dongwu replied calmly. You leave this corridor and I won't be forced to add your deaths to today's total. The elite guard's laugh sounded like grinding metal. One primitive against 50 trained soldiers? Your confidence is impressive but misplaced. 53, Dongwu corrected. You missed the 3 in the ventilation system above us. Every guard looked up at the same moment. In that instant of distraction, Dongwu moved. What happened next was not a battle. It was an education. The elite guards had fought wars across the galaxy. They had conquered worlds and defeated armies. But they had never faced anything like Li Dongwu. He moved between them like a shadow made solid, like death wearing human shape. Their energy weapons, designed to cut through starship armor, could not track his movements. Their advanced targeting system showed empty space where he should have been. Their enhanced reflexes, improved through generations of breeding and technology, were simply too slow. In the council chamber, the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy watched in stunned silence as their best soldiers fell like children. Some of the council members had begun to weep. Others sat frozen in shock. "What have we done?" whispered High Counselor Lirash, whose species looked like walking crystals made of light. "What have we awakened?" On the screens, the battle was already over. 53 elite guards lay unconscious in the corridor. Not dead, Dongwu had been careful about that, but completely defeated. He stood once again beside Taeho, not even breathing hard. "The next wave will be heavier assault troops," he said matter-of-factly. "After that, they will start using ship-mounted weapons against the station itself. Can you stop all of them?" "Yes, but at some point I will run out of non-lethal options." Through the station speakers, another announcement echoed. This time it was in the Klixin language, but Dongwu's implants translated automatically. "All non-essential personnel evacuate to emergency ships. Prepare to activate station self-destruct. We will not let this abomination escape to threaten civilized space." Taeho understood enough to go pale. "They're going to destroy the entire station." "To stop one human," Dongwu added. "They are more afraid than I expected." New sounds echoed through the corridors. Not footsteps this time, but the heavy mechanical noises of war machines being deployed. The council was bringing everything they had. "I need to access the station's communication system," Taeho said suddenly. "Maybe I can still stop this from becoming a war." Dongwu looked at him with something that might have been respect. "After everything they have done, you still want to try diplomacy?" "So-min believed peace was possible," Taeho said, looking down at his friend's still form. "I won't let her death be meaningless. The communication center is 12 levels up and heavily guarded. Can you get me there?" Dongwu nodded. "Yes, but once we move, there will be no going back." "Are you sure?" Taeho stood, gently placing So-min's hands across her chest. "I'm sure. Then stay close to me," Dongwu said, "and try not to look too carefully at what I have to do to keep you alive." They moved into the corridor, stepping over the unconscious forms of guards who had thought themselves the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Behind them, So-min lay in eternal peace, her sacrifice about to either save 2 civilizations or damn them both to war. In the depths of Nexus Prime, something that had once been human began to fight its way toward a chance at peace. The corridor leading away from the council chamber was wider than the ones they had used yesterday. Taeho noticed that it had no windows and only one way in or out. The walls were thick metal and the ceiling had weapons built into it. This was not a hallway. It was a killing ground. 20 alien guards surrounded them as they walked. More waited ahead and behind. Their weapons hummed with energy that made the air itself feel dangerous. The rock-like guard captain gestured with one of its 4 arms. "Stop here, humans." They stood in the center of the corridor. The guards formed a circle around them, weapons pointed inward. Above them, the council members appeared on viewing screens that had dropped from the ceiling. They wanted to watch what happened next. High Counselor Vexathara's image buzzed with amusement. "Before we dispose of you, perhaps you would like to send a final message to your people? Tell them that cooperation is always better than defiance." "You're going to murder us," So-min said. It was not a question. "Such an ugly word," replied Zefkol from his screen. "We prefer to think of it as sending a message. Your deaths will help your species understand the wisdom of accepting our protection." Taeho felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He had suspected this might happen, but hearing it confirmed was still a shock. They had never intended to negotiate. This whole meeting was a trap, to kill Earth's diplomatic team and terrorize humanity into submission. "Our government will not submit because you murdered their diplomats," he said. "Oh, but they will." Mordek's crystal form flashed on another screen. "When they see what we are capable of, When they understand how easily we can reach them, they will beg for the same terms we offered you. The guard captain raised its weapon. The other guards did the same. Energy weapons whined as they charged to full power. Any last words, primitives? Taeho opened his mouth to speak, but Dongwu stepped forward. For the first time since they had met, the quiet bodyguard's face showed expression. He looked sad. Yes, Dongwu said quietly. You should have taken the peaceful option. The first shot came from above. Energy beams designed to kill instantly struck down from the ceiling weapons. But instead of hitting 3 helpless humans, they hit empty air. Dongwu had moved faster than eyes could follow, pulling both Taeho and Somin to the side. Almost faster. Somin cried out as one of the beams caught her shoulder, spinning her around and throwing her to the floor. Blood spread across the metal beneath her. Somin. Taeho dropped to his knees beside her, trying to stop the bleeding with his hands. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. I'm sorry, she whispered, looking up at him with eyes that were already growing dim. I wanted to see Earth make friends with the stars. You will, Taeho said desperately. You're going to be fine. We'll get you help. But even as he spoke, he could see the life leaving her eyes. The weapon had burned through her chest. There was too much damage to fix. Somin smiled once more, touched his face with a bloody hand, and was gone. Taeho knelt there holding his friend's body while alien guards pointed weapons at his head. Grief and rage filled him until he could barely breathe. Around him, the guards were shouting orders and checking their weapons. The ceiling guns were cycling through their targeting systems, trying to lock onto the third human. They could not find him. The temperature in the corridor began to drop. Breath misted in the air. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. In the sudden quiet, a voice spoke from the shadows between the guards. You have made a mistake. The voice belonged to Lee Dongwu, but it sounded different now. Colder. Like winter wind through a graveyard. The guards spun in circles trying to find him. Their weapons swept back and forth, but their targeting systems showed nothing. On the viewing screens, the council members leaned forward with interest. Where is he? The guard captain barked. Behind you, said Dongwu's voice. The captain turned, but there was nothing there. Then something touched the back of its rocky neck and the 8-foot-tall alien crumpled to the floor like a broken toy. Chaos erupted in the corridor. Guards fired their weapons in every direction. Energy beams scorched the walls and ceiling. But they hit nothing except each other and the metal around them. One by one, the guards began to fall. They dropped silently, with no sound except the soft thud of bodies hitting the floor. Those still standing fired wildly at shadows, but their shots found only air. On the screens, High Counselor Vexithara's mandibles clicked rapidly. What is happening down there? How is one primitive defeating trained soldiers? Her question was answered when emergency lights began flashing throughout the corridor. A security alert sounded. Containment breach in Section 7, all units respond. Code Black protocols in effect. Code Black? Mordek's crystal form flashed with confused colors. That is for war scenarios. How can 3 diplomats trigger Code Black? 2 diplomats, corrected a new voice. The council members looked at their screens in shock. Standing in the corridor, surrounded by unconscious guards and smoking weapons, was Lee Dongwu. But he looked different now. His simple black suit was unmarked by the battle. His hair was still perfectly neat. He showed no signs of the fight that had just happened. What had changed were his eyes. They were no longer the eyes of a quiet bodyguard. They were the eyes of something that lived in the spaces between stars, something that hunted in the dark between worlds. One diplomat, Dongwu continued, looking directly up at the cameras, and me. He knelt beside Taeho, who was still holding Somin's body. I am sorry I could not save her. I was trying to protect you both. What are you? Taeho whispered. What your species needs me to be, Dongwu replied. Then he stood and faced the cameras again. My name is Lee Dongwu. I'm a member of Earth's Ghost Protocol. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of when threatened. You are seeing one human. Imagine what happens when Earth learns you murdered our diplomat. On the screens, the 12 council members sat in stunned silence. Around them, alarms wailed as more security forces rushed toward the corridor. Emergency blast doors slammed shut, sealing the section. Weapons systems throughout the station powered up to maximum. Impossible, breathed Zefkol. One being cannot defeat our entire security force. Your entire security force, Dongwu said calmly, was not prepared for war. They were prepared to murder diplomats. There is a difference. The first blast door exploded inward as more guards arrived. These were not regular security. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for battlefield use. They moved like soldiers who had seen real combat. They lasted exactly 37 seconds. As smoke cleared from the destroyed doorway, Dongwu stood unchanged among the wreckage. He had not even moved from beside Taeho and Somin's body. You wanted to demonstrate your power, he said to the cameras. Allow me to demonstrate mine. The lights went out. In the darkness, something moved through the station like death given form. Security cameras showed brief glimpses. A shadow in a corridor, guards falling with no sound, weapons firing at empty air. On the bridge of the station, panic spread like fire. Commanders shouted orders that no one could follow. Systems that had never failed began shutting down one by one. In the council chamber, 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries finally understood what they had awakened. They had attacked a human diplomat, not knowing that death itself stood beside him. The second day of negotiations began badly and got worse. Taeho sat in the same chair as the day before, facing the 12 alien council members. Their platforms towered above the humans like judges looking down at criminals. The morning light from Nexus Prime's artificial sun made the chamber feel cold and unwelcoming. We have discussed your species through the night, High Counselor Zefkol announced. The ethereal's gaseous form swirled in its container like smoke in a bottle. The Council has reached a decision about humanity's place in galactic civilization. Taeho straightened in his chair. Beside him, Somin held her hand steady in her lap, though he could see the tension in her shoulders. Behind them, Dongwu stood like a statue, but his eyes tracked every movement in the chamber. We are ready to hear your decision, Taeho said formally. High Counselor Vexithera of the Clixon stepped forward. The insect creature's claws clicked against the metal floor. Humanity will accept the following terms. These terms are not negotiable. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a list written in multiple languages. Taeho read the English version with growing disbelief. First, Vexithera buzzed, all human ships will be restricted to your home solar system. Any human vessel found beyond these boundaries will be destroyed without warning. Second, all human military vessels and weapons will be surrendered to Council forces for disposal. Third, Council overseers will be stationed on all human colonies to ensure compliance with galactic law. Fourth, human population growth will be limited according to Council guidelines. Fifth, all human scientific research must be approved by Council supervisors. The list went on. Each item was worse than the last. By the end, humanity would be little more than pets in a cage, watched and controlled by alien masters. Taeho stood slowly. These terms are not acceptable. They would make humanity slaves in our own system. The sound that came from the council members might have been laughter in 12 different languages. High Counselor Mordek's crystal form flashed with bright colors. Slaves? Mordek's voice rang like broken glass. You misunderstand your position, human. You are a young species that has barely learned to leave your home world. We offer you the gift of guidance and protection. Protection from what? Somin asked. From yourselves, said High Counselor Merdok, the silver-skinned being with 4 arms. Your species is violent and unpredictable. Left alone, you will destroy yourselves or threaten others. We have seen it happen before. Taeho felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Our species has learned from our mistakes. We come here seeking friendship and cooperation, not domination. Friendship? Vexthara's mandibles clicked rapidly. Look at your companion there. She pointed one claw at Dongwu. Even on a peaceful diplomatic mission, you bring warriors. This proves your violent nature. Every delegation here has guards, Taeho pointed out. I see armed beings on every platform. Our guards are civilized, said another council member, a being that looked like a walking tree. They maintain order. Your kind breeds killers. The insult hung in the air like a physical thing. Taeho felt so intense beside him. Behind them, Dongwu remained perfectly still, but something had changed in his posture. It was so slight that only someone who knew what to look for would notice it. We need time to discuss these terms with our government, Taeho said carefully. There is nothing to discuss. Zefkol's voice boomed through the chamber. You will accept these terms now or face the consequences. What consequences? So-Min asked. The chamber filled with new holographic displays. They showed massive alien fleets, weapons that could crack planets and forces beyond human imagination. The message was clear. Submit or die. Your primitive ships and weapons are toys compared to what the Council commands. Vexithara buzzed with obvious pleasure. We could exterminate your entire species before your next harvest season. We have done it before, added Mordek. 17 species have been removed from the galaxy for refusing to accept Council guidance. Their worlds are empty now, available for more civilized settlers. The casual way they spoke of genocide made Teho's blood run cold. These were not civilized beings seeking to protect the galaxy. They were bullies who had grown drunk on their own power. You're talking about mass murder, So-Min said, her voice shaking with controlled anger. We prefer to call it corrective action, Murdoch replied with what might have been a smile. Necessary pruning to keep the galactic garden healthy. For the first time, Dongwu shifted slightly. It was barely noticeable. Just a small movement of his weight from one foot to the other. But every alien guard in the chamber suddenly became more alert. I see your warrior grows restless, Vexithara observed. Perhaps he would like to demonstrate human fighting skills for our entertainment. He is not here to fight, Teho said firmly. We came here for peace. Peace is what we offer, Sefkol said. Accept our terms and your species will have peace under Council protection. Refuse and learn why lesser species fear us. The threat was clear. Teho looked up at the 12 beings who held his species' fate in their hands. They stared back with expressions that ranged from boredom to cruel amusement. To them, humanity was nothing more than an annoying problem to be solved. I cannot accept terms that would enslave my people, Teho said quietly. I will not. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of machines and the soft sounds of alien breathing. Then Vexithara began to laugh, a sound like breaking glass mixed with buzzing insects. Then you have failed the test of civilized species, she announced. Guards, escort these primitives to the holding cells. We will send their ship back to Earth with news of their fate. Perhaps their government will be more reasonable. Armed aliens moved from their positions around the chamber walls. They carried weapons that hummed with energy and wore armor that looked like it could stop anything humans might throw at them. Their movements were confident, almost lazy. 3 humans against dozens of alien soldiers seemed like no contest at all. Teho stood and faced the approaching guards. This is not how diplomacy should work. You invited us here under the promise of fair negotiations. We promised you nothing, Mordek said. We simply offered you a chance to accept the inevitable. The first guard reached them, a being that looked like a walking rock with too many arms. It gestured with its weapon toward the chamber exit. Move, humans. Your usefulness has ended. Teho looked back at So-Min, who had also stood. Her face was pale but determined. Then he looked at Dongwu, who met his eyes for just a moment. In that brief glance, Teho saw something that made him shiver. Dongwu's dark eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. For just an instant, the quiet bodyguard looked less like a man and more like something wearing a man's shape. Very well, Teho said to the guards. We will go with you. But as they began to move toward the chamber exit, surrounded by alien weapons and watched by 12 species that saw humanity as nothing more than an infestation to be controlled, Teho could not shake the feeling that the real negotiations were about to begin. Behind them, the council members settled back to watch the show. They expected to see 3 frightened humans led away like sheep to slaughter. They had no idea that death itself was walking calmly beside their prisoners, wearing the face of a quiet man named Li Dongwu. The corridor outside the chamber was filled with more guards. Weapons were charged and ready. Security systems hummed with power. It was a trap designed to hold anything the galaxy might throw at it. They had built it to contain the wrong things. Kim Teho stared out the small window of his transport ship as the massive space station came into view. Nexus Prime was bigger than any structure humans had ever built. It floated in the darkness of space like a small metal moon, covered in lights and docking ports. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it like insects around a bright flame. First time seeing something like this? Asked Park So-Min from the seat beside him. She was looking at the same view, but her eyes showed excitement instead of worry. Yes, Teho said quietly. It makes Earth seem very small. Behind them, Li Dongwu sat in perfect silence. He had not spoken a single word during the entire 3-day journey. Taeho had tried to make conversation with his assigned bodyguard several times, but the man only nodded or shook his head in response. Dongwoo was tall and thin, with dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. He wore a simple black suit that hid whatever weapons he might carry. The transport ship shook slightly as it connected to one of the docking ports. A voice came over the speaker, speaking in a language that sounded like clicking insects. Then it repeated in perfect English. "Human delegation, you are cleared to board Nexus Prime. Please follow the guidelights to Council Chamber 7. Taeho took a deep breath. Everything he had trained for led to this moment. Earth had only made contact with alien life 2 years ago. The first meeting had not gone well. The aliens seemed to think humans were dangerous and primitive. They had demanded this second meeting to decide what to do about humanity. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The 3 humans stepped into a corridor that curved away in both directions. The ceiling was much higher than needed for humans, and the walls glowed with a soft blue light. Strange symbols moved across display screens, showing information in dozens of different languages. Their guide was waiting for them. It looked like a walking crystal, about 7 feet tall with faceted surfaces that reflected the corridor lights. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "Welcome to Nexus Prime. I am Translator Vex Mora of the Vorthak. Please follow me. The council is waiting." They walked through corridors filled with beings that looked like they came from nightmares or dreams. A creature that seemed to be made of blue gas floated past them. Something with too many legs and eyes that glowed red skittered along the walls. A group of tall, thin beings with silver skin stood talking in voices that sounded like music. "Amazing," Somin whispered to Taeho. "Look at all of them. So many different kinds of life." Taeho nodded, but he noticed that every alien they passed stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. None of them seemed friendly. Behind them, Dongwoo walked with perfect posture. His eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of their surroundings. He noted the locations of security cameras, the positions of armed guards, and the layout of each corridor they passed through. To anyone watching, he looked like a bored bodyguard, but his mind was working like a computer, recording everything. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered with screens showing star maps and alien writing. 12 raised platforms surrounded a small area in the center, where 3 simple chairs waited for the human delegation. On each platform sat a representative of a different alien species. Taeho recognized some of them from the files he had studied. The insect-like clicks and clicked and buzzed to each other. The gaseous ethereals floated in transparent containers. The Vorthak reflected light like living diamonds. "Humans," said a voice that boomed through the chamber. It came from High Counselor Zefkol, the ethereal representative. The gas creature's voice sounded like wind through caves. "You stand before the Galactic Council. We will decide your species' place in civilized space." Taeho walked to the center chair and bowed respectfully. "Honored council members, I am Kim Taeho, diplomatic representative of Earth. This is Park So-min, our cultural attaché, and Lee Dong-woo, assigned for our security. We come in peace, hoping to join the galactic community as friends and partners." Several of the council members made sounds that might have been laughter. High Counselor Vexthera of the Clixon stepped forward. The insect creature was 8 feet tall with sharp claws and eyes like black marbles. "Friends?" Vexthera's voice buzzed like an angry wasp. "Your species broadcasts its violence across space. We have seen your wars, your weapons, your cruelty to your own kind. You call this civilization? We have had conflicts in our past," Taeho admitted. "But we have also learned from them. We seek peace now. We want to share knowledge and culture with other species." "Peace?" Another council member spoke. This was Mordek of the Vorthak, whose crystal body flashed red with anger. "Your ships carry weapons. Your soldiers train for war. Even now, one of your warriors stands behind you." All eyes turned to Dong-woo, who remained perfectly still. He did not react to being called a warrior, but Taeho noticed that several alien guards had moved closer to their positions. "Lee Dong-woo is here for our protection only," Taeho explained. "Surely you understand the need for security when traveling to unknown places." "Unknown?" Vexithara clicked with what sounded like amusement. "Human, you are the unknown here. You are the danger that has entered our peaceful space." So Min stepped forward slightly. "Counselors, perhaps if you learned more about human culture, You would see that we value art, music, literature, and learning. We have brought gifts to share with you." She gestured to a small container they had brought. Inside were examples of human creativity: paintings, books, recordings of music from around Earth. The council members looked at the gifts with what seemed like disgust. High Counselor Murdoch, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "Primitive trinkets. This proves nothing. Any species can create pleasant decorations while planning war." The session continued for hours. No matter what Tejo said, no matter what evidence of human goodness So-Min presented, the council seemed determined to see humanity as a threat. They spoke of containment protocols and management systems as if humans were wild animals that needed to be caged. Throughout it all, Dongwu stood silent and still, but his enhanced hearing picked up conversations in alien languages that the council thought humans could not understand. His neural implants translated everything in real time. They were not here to negotiate. This was a trial where the verdict had already been decided. As the artificial day cycle dimmed the chamber lights, High Counselor Zefkol announced that the session would continue tomorrow. The humans were escorted to quarters that felt more like a prison cell than guest rooms. "That went about as well as expected," So-Min said once they were alone. "They've already made up their minds," Tejo replied, sitting heavily on one of the simple beds. "They see us as monsters." For the first time since the journey began, Dongwu spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. "They should be more careful about their assumptions." Tejo looked at his bodyguard with surprise. Those were the first words Dongwu had spoken in 3 days. There was something in his tone that made Tejo wonder if there was more to his quiet protector than he had been told. Outside their quarters, alien guards stood watch. They thought they were keeping 3 humans prisoner. They had no idea that one of those humans was already planning their route through every corridor, mapping every security system, and calculating exactly how long it would take to reach any point on the station. The real negotiations were about to begin.